All right, so I'll start with your bio. Robert Saltzman is a photographer, retired depth psychotherapist, and the author of 2 books on finding one's own mind, The 10,000 Things and Depnding On No-Thing. He lives in Todos Santos, Mexico with his wife, Catania, 3 donkeys, and a herd of cats. I get that right?
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. I'm going to start with a quote of something you've written that I'd love to get you to talk about. All right. Okay. This collective suffering has brought upon a readiness in many human beings for the evolutionary leap that is spiritual awakening. For many individuals alive now, this means they have suffered enough. No further suffering is necessary. The end of suffering. That is also the essence of every spiritual teaching. Be grateful that your suffering has taken you to this realization. I don't need to suffer.
Yes, well, those aren't my words.
They're not?
No, I may have quoted them. I don't
know.
Oh,
okay.
But that's nothing I would ever say.
Oh, perfect.
Not in the ballpark, not remotely.
Okay. Perfect. Well, let's start off with some horrible job on my part.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean,
okay.
Actually, negation is more important than affirmation at a time when so many people are hypnotized.
Okay.
It's negation. In other words, you stated something that is a non-dual trope. Everyone wants to believe that there's this carrot at the end of the universe called I won't suffer anymore. And the whole sales pitch is that someone has the key to open that box for you where there's no suffering. That's it. And my whole approach to this is to be honest and to say I find myself awake, but not without suffering. In fact, quite the opposite. I think as we awaken, we suffer more, not less.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so the awakeness, a part of the awakeness, part of the essence of what I call awake, and I understand other people have other definitions. We have to live with that. That's fine. But for me, the essence of it is to be with what is. If that's a toothache, well, it just is. You have to suffer. If it's a broken heart, which is non-material, not like a toothache, okay, it is, you know. And I've had a broken heart. Most people have, really, in one way or another. And the idea that we can escape from that into nirvana here, where you never feel that anymore, to me is, well, it borders on delusional.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think clearly I've only seen one stage this weekend, but I think that the speakers that are resonating here are those that are talking about the, for lack of a better phrase, we'll call it the human condition that just happens, and not this escape, but more of an invitation to.
Oh, that's good to hear, because I think that message is what spiritual people who would call themselves spiritual, I put on the scare quotes because I can't really separate spirit from matter myself. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit humorous or ironic that people who call themselves non-dualists would immediately bifurcate reality into matter and spirit. That's the ultimate duality, actually, making a duality from where there wasn't one in the first place. There's no spirit, there's no matter. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. There's not two different it's all of a piece. This is it. This is it. There's a long history of that. I don't know if we have time for that today, but I could go into vitalism and how even up to the 18th century, spirit was split from matter. And that idea persists now because people are ignorant of science.
Well, keep going with that. That sounds great.
The word spirit means breath. So that's this myth that inanimate objects become alive because they have spirit in them, and other things don't have spirit and they're dead. They've never been alive and they can't get alive. So our intelligence, in that way of speaking, is spiritual. That's the idea. Comes from the outside and it's put into this clay vessel here. It's what Alan Watts called the ceramic theory of the universe, ceramic view of the universe. So that is the belief that pervades non-duality. The idea is consciousness is primary. All this is just material, it's a dream. That's the basic idea. Not every non-dualist believes that, but a big proportion of them do. I know that because I've discussed this with hundreds of people by now. So that's a prevailing view. If you believe that consciousness is the only thing that really exists, you may be right. I don't know. And no one else does either. And that is the point. That is the point. There's a lot of evidence against it, and that evidence is growing. So if you want to hold on to that belief, I think you're going to see the waters rising. But I'm not sure of that. So that's not my point. I'm just opening that door because it has to be opened. If you have that belief that Nisargadatta knew truth, and you read it in a book and now you know it. But if you are someone who believes that Nisargadatta, when he said it's all just consciousness and that's it, and you believe that, if you do not know about 20th century and 21st century science, you have painted yourself into a corner, which may not be the right corner. That may not be the one where you want to hang out for the rest of your life. So at least I'm advising all the spiritual people, find out about physics and chemistry. It's come a long way, baby. So to get back to the vitalism, because this is the point, the average Facebook enlightened person believes in the life force. Of course they do. They believe in the life force. That's what energy healers use, and of course it works. Someone will get a Reiki master certificate, takes a weekend and $100, and now you can send vibrations out through your palms and heal people because of the vital force. The vital force. Well, there is no fucking vital force. This is not controversial. There may be other explanations for how a Reiki master heals, but it ain't no vital force. That's not the explanation. If you accept explanations because you don't know, but you don't want to maintain that space of not knowing because there's too much anxiety involved, and what if there is no meaning to life, and what if you just die and nothing groovy happens and all the rest of it. If that's too much anxiety, you'll just seize on an explanation and you fill that space with it. And that's what I see in the non-dual community, with a few exceptions. A few exceptions. There's some people I've met in the non-dual community who are aware of science, are aware of philosophy, understand the issues involved, and they still feel, for reasons of their own, some of them are bhaktis and actually just feel this love connection that they can't deny, or whatever it is, they feel it's just consciousness. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but those are the people I respect are the ones who know the issues and have a reason for believing that it's just consciousness, not Nisargadatta says so. And that is my message. So I've said it.
Well, you didn't hurt my feelings, and I don't think that you probably bummed anyone else out. But it sounds like what you're saying is it just comes from experience. You have to look to that, and whatever comes up from that experience, you're saying if you're just believing it in a book, then that's okay. And if you believe it's all consciousness,
skepticism is a valid approach to understanding the world. Um, but, but credulity is not a valid approach to understanding the world. The credulity that says, that's a Zen master, he must know what to do in this situation, I'll consult him. See, that's credulity. That is not, in my view, a valid approach to living. And yet, those are the people who are running the lives of all of these people who sit at their feet and believe that, I won't say any names, I've already done that and been famous for it. And I think that happened because that bullshit needed to get cleared out. But let's say it's cleared out now, because I see other people have glommed onto this theme now. There's more of it around. Not that I caused it, but just it seems to be the pendulum, the non-dual pendulum swung way fucking far. And now I think it's coming back. I did this interview with Tim Freak, who's a cool guy. It was a beautiful interview. He had written 35 books. He's a famous philosopher. He's on lists. And he wrote 35 books, and the bulk of them expressed the classic non-dual view. And in our interview, he said that he had moved away from that. That's why he was interviewing me, because I had expressed this doubt about some teacher of that non-duality stuff. And he felt that doubt, and the two of us got together to discuss it. And he's an influential person, and he's moving away from that now. I'm not really an influential person, but I've never been there. I saw non-duality as a cul-de-sac the moment I got a whiff of it. There really is, now I want to be clear on this, Noel, because there really is non-duality. But there's also not non-duality. And there's also not either duality or non-duality. There's non-duality, there's no non-duality, and there's neither no non-duality or non-duality. All of that is here in reality. Not that non-duality is reality and the rest of all these other items that we put in the box, throw them away. That's not it.
Understood. Well, I was on your website and reading some things, and I live in Costa Rica. And in Costa Rica, there are these guys that go up on the mountainside. They call them chapeadoras, just with a machete, hacking away the side of the mountain. And everything I read of yours, I feel like it has that chapeadora energy, just hacking away. I mean, I don't know. Well, I have some other questions that I can ask, but I was going to wait. But I know you have obviously some strong thoughts about religion as well. But I don't, in some cases, if people know about you, they probably already read those. But if you have some words you'd like to share on that, we could start with that, and then I'll get into some of the Q&A.
Okay, that's a simple question, which I can answer in just a paragraph.
Okay.
There are people I've met who consider themselves religious, who are open-minded, understand science, understands the philosophical issues involved, and feel this attraction toward the idea of God. They understand the scriptures not as fact, but as mythology that refers to something sacred that they believe humans have as a birthright. Those people are groovy. You can meet someone like that. If I meet someone like that, I'm happy. The rest of the people who are using this like drugs, I have compassion for them, but not much interest in discussing these matters at all. So I don't even talk about religion. I just say, I don't need God. God's just a word to me, and it could be like unicorn, refers to nothing. That's my attitude, but I just want to emphasize, there are religious people to whom I would not say that about what they do with their minds. There are people like that. A good example is Thomas Merton. I don't know if people know him. I used to read him. He's a Christian mystic and put things in those terms. And I kind of liked him. But then when I found out that someone had given him a camera and he became fascinated with it and spent days with this camera. I like cameras too. So then I became more interested in him and picked up on his writing. And I would say that if the two of us sat down and had a dialectic, that's a beautiful word, dialectic. It means a conversation where you're not trying to convince anybody of anything. You're just discussing the matter. You're circumambulating the matter with a partner. You may not agree on everything, but it's not your agreement or disagreement that you're seeking, but to understand what the other person, how the other person sees it. Mm-hmm. So that interview with Tim Frerquent was a dialectic. We both approached in that spirit. And since I really understand how to do that, it's like it's like dancing. Once you've got the move, it's you don't want to do anything else. Right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like that is a lost, or it seems to be a lost dance these days, where everyone's just trying to drive home their point and not listening to anything else.